All right, welcome. Today we're jumping into a pretty wild perspective on where religion and belief really come from. All of this is drawn from the work of researcher Jordan Maxwell, so let's unpack his ideas.
Okay, let's just dive right in with the big question this research is built on. I mean, think about it. The Bible is filled with these incredible, spectacular miracles. Seas parting, people coming back from the dead. So why don't we see that stuff today? Why, as the source puts it, did God seem to just go out of the business of miracles?
And that question really brings us to our first big theme, this whole conflict between the miracles we read about and what we actually see in our daily lives.
You see, the argument here is that we've got this huge double standard. Back then, in the Bible, miracles were seen as proof of God's power. It was something to celebrate. But now, if someone today says they had a similar kind of supernatural experience, what happens? They're usually called delusional, or worse, the source even says it's often dismissed as devil worship. Kind of strange, right?
Okay, so let's pivot from the experience of belief to the text itself, because things get even more interesting when we start talking about what might be missing from the Bible we read today.
So get this. According to this research, there are about 20 books that are actually mentioned by name inside the King James Bible, but they're not in the book. They're referenced, but they're just not there.
So the obvious question is, what happened to them? Where did these books go? I mean, if they were important enough to get a shout-out in the Bible, you'd think they'd be included, right?
Well, here's the theory. The argument is that these weren't just any books. They were Gnostic texts. And the idea is that the early church councils intentionally removed them. Why? Because Gnostic ideas were all about having a direct, personal knowledge of God, and that just didn't fly with the more organized, top-down doctrine they were trying to build.
And this is where it gets really explosive. The source claims that the Apostle Paul, the guy who wrote like 2/3 of the New Testament, wasn't even a Christian in the way we think of it. He was a Gnostic. So a key founder of the faith was supposedly a follower of the very ideas the church later tried to erase.
Okay, let's pull the camera back a bit. We're moving beyond just the text now, because the argument goes even deeper. It suggests that Christianity itself isn't entirely new, that it actually has much older roots.
Specifically, the source points to Mithraism. This was a really popular religion in the Roman Empire before Christianity came along. And the claim is that Christianity is, in a way, just a retelling of it. They shared a whole bunch of core ideas, which, according to this theory, were just repackaged for a new audience.
So if belief systems are borrowed and texts are edited, where did it all start? This is where we get to probably the most out there claim in this whole body of work. The idea that religion, well, it wasn't even invented by us. The research points to passages like this, paraphrased one from the Quran. Notice the word choice. It doesn't say, I gave you your religion. It says, we have given you your religion. We are the ones who came down. That little word, we, is presented as a huge clue.
So who is we? If it's not a single all-powerful God, then who or what is this mysterious group that's supposedly handing down these belief systems?
And this is where the speculation really takes off. The theory is that this we refers to some kind of non-human intelligence. Call them what you want. Higher extraterrestrial minds, spirits, demons, whatever. The core idea is that something not from our world has been feeding us these religions for thousands of years, almost like a guiding hand shaping our civilization.
Okay, so with all these wild ideas on the table, why isn't this common knowledge? Why don't more people question where their beliefs come from? For that answer, we have to stop looking at history and start looking at ourselves, at human psychology.
So let's look at how this source defines theology. Sure, it's the study of God, but in practice, it's really just the way my group understands God. It's our truth, the absolute truth.
And then you have mythology. What's that? Well, it's the way other groups understand God. You see the difference? What we believe is theology. What they believe is mythology. It's just a story. It frames the whole thing as a matter of perspective, not fact.
And the reason we stick to our theology is because the cost of questioning it is just so high. Think about it. You'd have to stand alone against everyone you know. You risk being mocked, being told you're ignorant. You could be ostracized by your entire community. You could literally lose your job, your friends, even your family. That's a huge price to pay.
And all of this leads to a really powerful metaphor, that we as humanity are like a school of fish or a flock of birds. You know how they turn on a dime all at once?
It's not like every single fish or bird decided to turn left. They're moving together as one, driven by some kind of collective unconscious impulse.
And that brings us to the final, lingering question this research leaves us with. If we're all part of this flock, moving together, and if our beliefs aren't entirely our own, then who or what is leading the way? And what does it even mean to truly think for yourself?